Welcome to Talking Jets. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside our frequent flyers, Green Bean, Matt O'Leary, and Gang Green David. It's good to have you guys back after a long draft process. Green Bean, how you doing? You're looking a little more loose than the last 2 days we saw you.
Oh my God, man! What a whatever it was, weekend, a month, I don't even know. But I did miss being here with you guys. I was trying to check in like 7-hour days. You guys are something else. I wish I was with you.
David, how you doing tonight?
You know, I definitely miss Green Bean, but it was definitely fun streaming with you guys the last couple of days. It was fun interacting with everybody, but I'm ready to talk some draft. We had a really good draft, and I can't wait to break it down tonight.
Yo, Matt O'Leary, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, boys. It was a fun weekend hanging with you, and now let's break it down for the folks on this Tuesday night.
I love it.
Right.
We'll jump right into our selections. Let's see, I think I gotta redo my little browser thing because it's not looping. There we go. All right, so let's jump right into the draft, and let's talk about some of our favorite picks. We'll go right through. Let's try to grade. We'll grade each draft pick. So let's talk round 1, Mekhi Becton, 11 overall. What did you guys think of it as far as the value for the pick, what we should have done? Matt, I'll kick it to you first.
Yeah, I think you got to give Joe Douglas an A on that one. I don't know if I'll go A+, but it's because there's a little bit of risk involved in Mekhi Becton, but I like that he took the swing. Like, if Mike McCagnon was making that draft pick, he would have went Tristan Wirfs because that would have been the safer option. But Joe Douglas kind of just, put his balls on the line and said, I like this guy's ceiling, and I'm going to get after it. So he addressed the biggest need on the team right away, and I think it was a smart play.
David, what would you give the first pick of our draft grade-wise?
I would give it an A- just because this is a guy that's got a very low floor, but he does have a very high ceiling. The guy is an absolutely talented player. He's a freak of nature, and you cannot teach that kind of strength to any sort of offensive lineman in the NFL. What I do think that Mekhi Becton should work on is I think he should work on his technique and his leverage, and hopefully he can actually do that throughout training camp or whatever offseason program that we'll have. But I think the upside is tremendous in Mekhi Becton. I like that Joe Douglas went with the legitimate tackle pick.
Hold on, David, real quick. I just see Worth the Fight in the chat saying I didn't respond to a shirt giveaway. Check your email. I'm almost 110% sure, or however you respond to me. I definitely responded to you. I did it the other day, so definitely check your email. He says I didn't respond to his winning of the shirt, but I definitely did. Sorry, David, continue.
Yeah, but overall, I give the pick an A- just because there's some stuff that Becton could work on as a player, and luckily you'll have some sort of offseason program even throughout this pandemic to do that. But the upside is tremendous. He's a very physical lineman. He's very strong as well. He can maul people. And Joe Douglas went with the right pick addressing the offensive tackle by taking a guy who played left tackle. So I give the pick an A-.
What did you think about the first pick of our draft, Green Bean?
A++++. That's what I think about it. I think, the only person that I would have taken, and you guys know this, we've been talking about this for a long time, the only guy I would have taken over him is Andrew Thomas, and he was gone. I think exactly for the reasons that Matt said, the balls on Joe Douglas, and we'll get into a more substantial version of why he has balls in a minute, but the fact that he took that swing on a 6'7", 370-pound monster who literally said, my favorite thing about football is putting people on the ground. That, to me, is an exceptional pick. It's exactly what we're not used to getting here. We're always so cautious. We're always so, dry. And, all this talk over the years of building culture, and what we were really doing is bringing in boring, lackluster players. Joe Douglas is talking about culture, but his culture comes with aggression, and that's Mekhi Becton. I love the swing, and I commend Joe Douglas for taking it.
I agree. I definitely like the move. I'm going to give it an A. I think it was a smart move. You take the left tackle. If you had gone with receiver or any other position, I would have been pretty mad. There's no, even if you took CeeDee Lamb, I would have been furious that we did not address the tackle position. Just for everyone's knowledge, Worth the Fight. Hold on. Let me see if I get that in there. I'll get that. trying to zoom in. Is
What is that?
It's
That
my
looks like-
email. It's Worth the Fight who emailed me about his shirt. And if you look right there, it says 3 days ago I responded. So Worth the Fight. Check your
right.
email. It's in there. I knew I was right.
Wow.
Sorry, I just when people call me out on stuff, I'm like, all right, you know what? I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong, but when I'm right, I'm gonna come back at you.
You're gonna know.
Oh yeah. All right, so we're all in agreement. A is all the way around with the Becton pick. Now we get into pick 59, and that would be Denzel Mims. And there's a little bit more at stake with this one because we slid down the draft board. We got some more draft picks. We got Seattle's 3rd round pick, which wound up being traded to the Patriots, which oddly enough, well, I'll get into that anyway. Anyway, we slid back from 48 down to 59. We select Denzel Mims. I love the pick. Mims was the top receiver on my board to start the day. Again, we talked about it a little bit on stream, but I thought his floor was 30 at the Packers. When he fell to 48 and we traded back, I was so mad. I was about to give that grade like I was not going to give it a good grade if we wound up not getting him. And then we slide down, winds up falling to us anyway, and we select him. So I give that pick an A for sure. I think it was a home run selection. I think he's got the speed, and just like Green Bean always brings up, speed builds pressure, pressure bursts pipes. And that I'm getting better at this whole quote thing. I've said it so many times in these videos, and I give you credit usually when I say it too. I saw Matt do the same thing. He goes, "Did I say it right, Green Bean?" So
Funny.
I like the speed. I like the speed that we have with Perriman, with Mims, with all the players that we really added across the board. I mean, even Becton for his size is so fast. But definitely happy. A plus A with Mims. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, that's an A++. I mean, one, going into the day, for a little backstory for those who don't know, Ryan asked for give me 5 players you want at 48. And I didn't even list Mims because I said there's no way he's going to be on the board at 48. So he was there, and then Joe Douglas decides to trade back. And if you're watching the stream, we were all having a meltdown. And somehow he was there at 59. This is a player who should have went in the 20s somewhere in the 1st round. Miraculously makes it down to the Jets at 59, and the Jets pick him. I mean, this is a guy with wide receiver 1 potential. I think in year 1, at minimum, he's going to give you wide receiver 2 numbers like 700, 800 receiving yards, something like that. But he's a big body receiver who's fast and has really, really nice hands. I like it a lot.
Jerome Strax in the chat goes, "Hey, Green Bean, how did your audition for Weekend at Bernie's go?" I love that movie. Weekend at Bernie's 2 might be one of my favorite, like, kind of dumb comedies from, God, that had to be late 80s, mid 80s. I didn't see it till I was, like, probably 10, but.
I saw it in the movie theater.
Ugh, you're showing your age.
Yeah, dude, the beer does that for me, man.
David, what'd you think about the Mims pick?
I love the pick. I give it an A. I mean, we needed to address the number 1 wide receiver position, and I'm glad that we did that, especially after getting offensive tackle. What I really liked about this is that Joe Douglas addressed his 2 biggest needs and got more draft picks out of that. Joe Douglas pulled off a gutsy move, and I remember throughout the stream, I was ready to rip Joe Douglas a new one because you had guys like Trayvon Diggs, you had guys like Denzel Mims sitting right there at 48, and I was like, why would you trade back when you could get a receiver who was probably supposed to be a 1st rounder? So somehow Denzel Mims still fell to the Jets at number 59. We ended up getting the guy. We ended up getting the wide receiver anyway, and we get more draft picks out of that. So Joe Douglas's approach to that pick alone was risky, but it worked in the end. I'd give that approach an A. But Denzel Mims himself, he's a big body guy. He's an all-around guy that can catch the ball in different scenarios. He is very fast. I don't know why I said speed was an issue. I was probably thinking about somebody else. But he is a very fast receiver. He's a big body guy. He could definitely be utilized in the red zone as well. So this could be a day 1 starter, number 1 wide receiver. And I'm really excited to see how he's going to fit into the offense. And I can't wait to see him. I give this pick an A.
Green Bean, over to you. What do you think of the Mims pick?
Yeah, well, look, I think the player himself, I would give an A anywhere in the draft. I mean, I loved him. He was my number 3 receiver. Technically speaking, I like Chenault a little bit better, but I've said it many times. If given the opportunity to pick one of those 2 receivers, I would have taken Mims specifically because of the injury history. Even though I love Chenault, I probably wouldn't have taken him over Mims. The fact that we got him is an A. The fact that Joe Douglas showed us just how well he studies and knows the board, that he felt comfortable enough to trade back 11 spots with Mims being his target. Mims was the end of the top tier, or, the top 2 tiers of receivers. The fact that Joe Douglas and his team knew that they had a good chance of getting him after trading back shows that they know this draft board and the probabilities better than any GM that we've ever had. That added to the player himself, there's got to be something higher than an A+, because that's what he gets from me.
Shaq Madison, thank you for the super chat. I'm still a little salty on not drafting Hot Rod. I know we were salty that we didn't get Hot Rod too, so we brought his doppelganger onto the channel today, and I should have changed out David's name with with Hot Rod, but I didn't do that. But no, we're all a little. I don't want to say a little salty for not getting Hot Rod, because I don't mind not taking a quarterback, but I would have liked to have seen one at that last 6th round pick. Guys, we will do phone calls tonight. We're just going to go through our normal half hour of recapping everything we think, and then we'll do the call-ins starting at 8:30. And actually, I have my little thing there. Boom! Now it's on the screen. All right, so we talked over our first 2 picks. Now we get into more of the interesting picks. And we're going to talk about Ashton Davis, the defensive back, free safety, that we selected at the top part of the 3rd round. Now, I think we were all pretty surprised with the safety selection here. I think a lot of us probably wanted wide receiver or edge rusher or corner in that slot. This guy can play all over the field, so I guess in a sense it is like a corner selection. But I'm going to give this a B-. I wasn't overly thrilled with this selection. I do like the player. I do like I do like the fit, and I like the preemptive thought from Douglas. Like, I think knowing that May could be gone after this season, or the potential of a trade of one of the other safeties on our team, I think it's always good to have a contingency plan, and always good to have depth at a position like that. And that's kind of where I fall. I don't hate the player. I love that he's versatile. I don't think that I think we could have had better value there. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm at about a C+ for a lot of the same reasons that you said. I think the player's pretty intriguing, that he could play all around the defense. I just don't know if I would have taken a player like that in that spot with how the board was, if that makes sense. I wouldn't really say it's all that high up on the needs list right now. That seemed more of a luxury pick. And while you might love the player, and I think they got a pretty solid player who could do a lot of different things, I don't know if the value in that spot is all that great. That's why I'm going to give it. It was an okay grade, like a C+.
David, what are you thinking?
I would actually give it around a B-, just because it definitely interested me drafting a safety in the 3rd round. I can understand Joe Douglas's approach to an extent, to where you want to draft versatile guys, and he also did that with one of the other picks. He drafted a couple of guys that could play multiple positions. This guy, Ashton Davis, he's a big physical guy. He's pretty fast. He's got a great burst. He's got a solid read on ball carriers. His tackle could use a little bit of work. But now it just raises questions about what's going to happen with Jamal, what's going to happen with May. There's a good amount of questions raising with that pick. But if he can play corner as well, he can also return as well, then you could get some solid value there. It was definitely an interesting pick, but I can definitely see the depth this guy could provide, and I can see the talent there with the versatility, the skill set, and the special teams contribution you can get out of him. So I give it a B-.
Green Bean, how do you feel about the Ashton Davis pick?
Well, I did a lot of work on this one for my feelings, quite frankly, because when it happened, I gave it a big, fat, solid F. I hated it. I got to the 3rd round as excited as I could be after drafting Mekhi Becton and doing the trade down and still getting Denzel Mims. I was like, I can't even imagine what's coming. It felt like Thanksgiving, and then we pulled up with a safety. I was very deflated and let down. I've looked into him. The truth is like you guys said, he probably is going to end up taking Marcus May. His job in the event that Marcus May's contract demands are exorbitant. I'd hate to see that, because I like Marcus May. Look, he's on the same timeline as Jamal Adams, and who do we hear about? Jamal Adams every 5 minutes. Marcus May quietly is doing his job, not saying anything to anyone. So I like having a guy like that around. Plus, he's talented. But in the event they can't sign him, his replacement's here. But I think it's a little bit more than that. Like we were just touching on, he played free safety, strong safety, cornerback, nickelback, middle linebacker. He's a kick returner. And he's only been playing football for a few years. This guy's just coming into his own. He's an uber athlete, track star, all those kinds of things. They absolutely plan on utilizing him this year in 3 safety sets and dime packages and nickel packages and things like that. And the truth is that he's going to be excellent in that role. He's going to be coming in. He's not a starter, but he's going to have quite the impact this year. I give it B minus at best.
Okay. So now we roll into probably the most questionable, or actually, no, not the questionable one. That was the 4th. We'll get to the our second third round pick. Our second third round pick wound up being Jabari Zuniga. I'm going to pronounce that wrong constantly throughout the season. Shadow had some PTSD from the whole Ja'Kai Polite third round Florida edge rusher, first round talent, fell to the third round. Had a little bit of a PTSD flashback from that. But I do think that this was a good move. I like taking first-round caliber guys this late because you could still get a starter. Like, generally, the third round is where it's kind of hit or miss. Like, you expect your first and second-round picks to start, and then your third-round picks, it's like, okay, these guys are going to be rotational players. And then as you get a little bit further down, they become, depth and practice squad kind of guys. But I like the burst from Jabari. I think he is really good. From what I've read, it seems like he was injured a lot of last year, and he only played healthy, I think, in 2 of his maybe 8 games that he played in. And the Florida fans that I've talked to really like him. They think he is hands down the best defender on the field when he's there. Now, that being said, we needed that. We needed an edge rusher. And Jordan Jenkins is on a 1-year contract right now. So in the event we decide not to move on with him next year, I think at the very least we have someone that could possibly step into his role, and I think probably fulfill it at a higher caliber of play than we've seen from Jenkins. I do think edge rusher is going to be a primary concern for us next year. I think edge rusher cornerback will be like our first round pick of next year. So I don't think he's the solution at edge rusher, but I do think he is a piece to this puzzle that will give us the flexibility with Jenkins as well as the hope of having a good pass rusher. I'm going to give this a B plus signing for Jabari Zuniga. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm at right about a B. I think he, was pretty good value in that spot. It was a position of need. I thought it was a pretty good pick. Not a whole lot to complain about. I think he kind of reminds me of Calvin Pace almost. I don't know if he's going to be someone who's going to come in and get a bunch of sacks, but he looks like someone who could, at minimum, be in the rotation this year and hopefully either A, take over for Jenkins if he walks, or be a nice compliment on the other side.
David, what do you think about the pick?
I would give this pick a B. I like that we got an edge rusher in the draft. This edge rusher kind of caught me by surprise, considering that there were some better options out there in the third round that we could have gotten. But this is a guy who is not Ja'Kai Polite, because I understand the whole Ja'Kai Polite references that he came out of Florida and he's a third round pick. The thing with Zuniga is that he's a completely different player who played in a completely different system than Polite. I think this is going to be a guy that's going to come in and he can definitely be a solid piece. Solution, that could be determined within a couple of years or so. But I think the injuries did hold him back. But he's a guy who's explosive off the edge. He can get to the quarterback fairly quickly, and he can tackle, so he's pretty strong as well. But he is going to have to work on a couple things a little bit. So if we want this guy to be a possible solution, it's going to take a little bit of time. But I still think we need to find a legitimate solution to pass rusher. But I can understand the value out of this guy. I understand the talent out of this guy. But it's going to be interesting to see how he can develop from his injuries.
Green Bean, what do you think about the edge rusher pick?
Yeah, I mean, look, there were guys that I liked a little bit better at that position. But just like a few weeks ago, I have a guy who's pretty much a Florida expert, if you will. And I always lean on him when there are players coming out of Florida that we may like. I talked to him about Perine. I talked to him last year about Polite. He didn't like him. He said, we're really taking a risk. I asked him about Zuniga a couple of weeks ago, and he said that the only similarity that this guy has to Polite is the fact that they're edge rushers and they wear the same colors. That's it. Outside of that, there's nothing that they have in common. Completely different character makeup, completely different styles, and he likes Zuniga much, much more than Polite. And the truth is so do I. I mean, I don't love him, but I think that if he wasn't injured last year, he ended up playing 6 games, we would be talking a whole different tune if we got him. His season was on a different trajectory, and he would have been probably in the second round conversation. And I'm really happy to have him. I think that Greg Williams is going to do wonders with this guy, and we'll all be pretty happy that he's a Jet, I think.
V-Man, thank you for the super chat. He says, "Hey, Green Bean, did you know the Beatles' last concert is newer than the Jets winning the Super Bowl? Also, the first episode of Scooby-Doo is how depressing is that? Oh, the first episode of Scooby-Doo is also newer than the Jets winning the Super Bowl. Did you guys know that Cleopatra is closer to the birth of the iPhone than she is the creation of the pyramids?" Fun fact. Has nothing to do with the Jets, but it's an interesting fact.
It is, yes. Cleopatra was real. That's the thing, is we forget that. She's one of these, these kinds of fictitious, these fictional type of characters from stories, but she was actually real, which is interesting. I always associate her with snakes. Dude, am I wrong?
Oh yeah.
What is it?
I think when I think like Medusa, I think attractive woman with crazy hair, and then you think Cleopatra, she's got the nice flat black hair, and then I don't know.
Dudes to stone.
She had that Snapchat filter before Snapchat was a thing. She was way ahead of the game. She had the whole fluttery eyes.
That's right.
All right, so now we roll into the third round. Or we're in the third round currently. We trade our third round pick that we acquired in the Mims trade down, and we get the Patriots 2 fourth-round picks and a 6th-round pick in 2021, which was the pick that we traded away for Demaryius Thomas. Or at least same round. I don't know if it's actually our pick or their pick. But so we trade down. Oddly enough, the Jets select the quarterback the Patriots wanted with one of those picks. So that was kind of sort of nice. But we trade down. We start at the beginning of the 4th round. So the beginning of the 4th round, we start our day off, day 3 of the draft, with LaMichael Perine. And I like the pick. From the initial highlights of me watching him, he feels like he runs a lot more similar to Bilal Powell than he does, say, a Le'Veon Bell. He seems to be a one-cut, hit-the-hole type runner, and I think that's going to go a lot further in our scheme than Bell did last year. I also think that without Montgomery, without Powell on the roster, you at the very least needed a backup running back. This was definitely earlier than I thought. I was hoping maybe 5th round, so we could try to tackle either edge rusher, receiver, or corner at the beginning of the 4th. So it was a little high for me. I'm going to give it a B. I'll say just a B. No B minus or B plus, just B. For the Perine signing, I think it was necessary, maybe a little rich for me. But Matt, what do you think about it?
I'm at a B minus for Perine. I like him as a prospect. I thought it was a little bit on the earlier side for him. I think this is someone who has the potential to be a long-term second running back. I don't know if he's ever going to be able to be a lead back for the Jets, but I think he has the potential to fill the Powell role where he's the complementary piece. He's, going to blast through the hole, hit the hole hard. He doesn't have blazing speed, but he's a leader. They love the off the field stuff. Like, he has really great character and stuff like that. We know about that. So, I mean, it makes sense for Joe Douglas to go that route. I'm at a B minus for the player in the spot, though, I think.
David, what do you think about Perine?
I would actually give it a B plus, just because I like that we actually took a backup running back, and I think the value is going to be pretty solid here. This is a guy who I think is more of a Bilal Powell kind of running back, and we actually talked about it when we were watching some highlights on him during the draft stream. He's a very shifty back. He can burst through the hole, and I think the speed can definitely be there. He's also a pass-catching back, so he does remind me a lot of Bilal Powell, and if Adam Gase uses him probably more than Le'Veon Bell, then Adam Gase could move forward with this guy. I mean, we're kind of looking for a backup running back anyway, since we don't have one. And I actually like the value at that pick. It shocked me a little bit when we drafted him in the 4th round, but I think that's where you could find a lot of these solid running backs anyway. So this is, I think, going to be a player that's going to come in. He's going to contribute as that number 2 back role, and he is going to be that Bilal Powell-esque kind of back that you would want. So I actually give it a B+ for the value and for the upgrade at backup running back.
Green Bean, what do you think of the Perine pick? He was one of the players that was on your top 5 players for the final rounds.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and he was also in my mock. But the thing about Cleopatra is, no, I'm just kidding. But Perine was one of my favorite players as far as running backs go. But the only problem I have with that pick is it was a little earlier than I would have liked to see him get picked. But it gets weighed out by a guy later on. I thought he should have been about a 5th round pick, but I love him, and he has kick returner ability as well. His whole purpose is to get Trenton Cannon off our damn team. He's going to do everything that Trenton Cannon does, but better, and we're going to love this guy. He does not get tackled on the first attempt. There's a really funny video going around. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, where he dragged Jamal Adams for about 15 yards in college. It's really it's a beautiful sight to behold. You see Jamal's trying real hard to bring him down, and he can't. And that's kind of Perine's thing. If you try to arm tackle him or give him a half effort, he's going to run right through you. And that's what we want. That guy that's going to get that extra yard. I love the pick, but I don't love where he was taken. I give it a B.
I think we move into our second, 4th round pick, and this is the one that I think will probably get the most criticism of the bunch, and that's the James Morgan pick, the quarterback from Florida International. And this definitely had me scratching my head. I was not a fan of a quarterback in the 4th round. I wouldn't have really wanted one in the 5th round, to be honest. If we could have taken one in the 6th or traded back and got one in the 7th, I would have been fine with it. I don't think you're necessarily winning games by having James Morgan as your backup in this league. Like, if you, in a pinch situation, if Darnold goes down, I don't think James Morgan's going to be ready to play this year. I'm going to give this a C for me, I think. I don't hate it. The only reason it's not a D is because you got to steal a quarterback away from the Patriots using the pick they gave us, so a little kick to the groin for them. If we could keep them in quarterback purgatory for about a year or two because of this pick, I'm all about it. But I'm going to say James Morgan is a C for me only because of the Patriots connection. Matt, what do you think of the James Morgan pick?
Yeah, this is an F. This is my only F. I didn't get it at all. I don't think it makes any sense for what the Jets are trying to do. Because everyone was saying, oh, they need a backup quarterback because Sam missed 3 games each of the last 2 years. Fine, I agree with that. But then don't take a developmental project to be that backup quarterback. He has a really, really strong arm, but his accuracy issues are legit. They're a little scary. So maybe 3 years from now, he could be a competent backup. But if Sam Darnold goes into 2020 and has to miss 3 games, the Jets are screwed because this kid's not going to be able to play. And I just don't think with how the board was sitting at that time that a quarterback was the right move. I would not have drafted one in this draft class in that, especially like I know we're not really a big fan of Fromm, but I would have rather taken Fromm over him anyway. So I really, really did not like the pick at all.
David, what did you think about the quarterback pick?
I actually did not like the pick at all either. I could understand the need of wanting a backup quarterback, but we're still in the realm of if Sam Darnold goes down, then we're screwed. This is a player that we drafted in the 4th round, and this is a guy who a lot of people had. I don't even know where this guy landed in draft boards. I didn't even know who he was till we drafted him, and then we looked at the highlights. He has a decent arm, but we're still in that sense to where if Sam goes down, we are screwed. I think the Jets should have really went to the approach of getting a legitimate backup quarterback because after Sam Darnold, you have an Adam Gase quote-unquote prospect in David Fales, and then you have a developmental backup, a developmental 4th round pick, who didn't really – I don't even know where he played, to be honest. But I don't like –
I know where he played.
I don't like the pick at all. This is the only pick that I legitimately do not like. I would have probably – got more depth at more position of needs with that pick. You could have addressed backup quarterback by bring in a Matt Moore if he's still out there, or any other free agent backup quarterback to where he has some experience you don't have to pay a lot to. So I don't like the pick at all. I can understand the approach, but this is not the kind of approach I wanted. I give it a complete F.
Green Bean, what do you think about the quarterback pick?
Okay. Well, look, I know where he played because my wife went to FIU, and I've actually gone to their shitty games down there. And I've sat in that crappy-ass stadium with 300 other people and watched the worst football on earth. I'm telling you, it felt like watching a high school game. I have a high school county team up here in Virginia. They were a better showing than FIU. Now, that all said, I give it a D-. Now, the only two reasons I don't give it a big fat F is the fact that I'm old enough to remember when we had a long-term backup quarterback in Pat Ryan. I don't know if you guys remember him. He was our backup quarterback seemingly forever. I remember when he left, I was still young enough. I didn't understand. I'm like, what do you mean Pat Ryan's not on the team? I didn't even understand. He was our second quarterback. So I remember the value of having that guy. You knew what he was. You knew what he came in and all that kind of stuff. And I also like the idea that, like you said, Ryan, it was a little shot to the nuts on Bill Belichick, a little flick. Hey, how's that feeling? A little Joe Douglas flick to the testes. And I like that a little bit. But let me say this. The guys taken right after him, Charlie Heck was the next pick. That is a mammoth offensive tackle that's going to be a starter in this league. 2 picks later, Gabriel Davis. He's going to be a starter in this league. After that, we had guys like Gandy Golden, Ben Bredeson, Tyler Biadasz. They were all still there for the taking, and we took this turd. Now, the other good news is I honestly believe this is not our backup quarterback. This is the guy that's going to get David Fales off the team. This is going to be our developmental guy that Adam Gase wants. He wants a guy to develop from scratch behind Sam Darnold. We'll still get a vet in here to play number 2, and James Morgan is going to be developing. David Fales is going back to the garbage can where we got him, and that's the end of that. Even with all that, it's only a D- for me. This pick pissed me off. I've been trying real hard not to hate it, and I can't. I hate it.
Joe Douglas has won 2 of his 3 Super Bowls with backup quarterbacks. I'll leave that there. Let's talk about our third 4th-round pick. That would be tackle Cameron Clark. Again, I was hoping for probably an edge or a corner or a wide receiver, really, ahead of offensive line at this point in the draft. When I initially saw tackle, I wasn't real thrilled. I'm not overly thrilled. I mean, I guess it's just a depth lineman piece that's versatile across the board. I'm going to give this pick a C because there were a lot of guys that I did really like on the board. Maybe I should address my quarterback and say that's maybe like a D+ because this shouldn't be the same grade as that. But I think I'll put a C for Cameron Clark. I like that he had a really good game. Was it against Clemson, I believe, where he dominated. I don't know enough about him, and I'd prefer other players that were on the board at that point. Matt, what did you think about the Cameron Clark pick?
Yeah, I'm at like a B- or maybe close to a B. I think that he could just provide depth to a unit that needs help, and he could play on the interior. We know that Lewis probably isn't a long-term solution here. We know that Van Roten was brought in here on a cheap deal, so he could be a quick out if need be. So I think he's a developmental player who's not going to have to be very high up on the depth chart for at least this year, maybe even for 2021. But down the line, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some starts.
David, what did you think about the Cameron Clark pick?
I would give that a C+. I didn't know too much about him until I realized that he can actually move to guard as well. So this is another Joe Douglas multiple position pick. The guy has experience against a lot of big competition. He had a great game against Clemson. He has a pretty decent frame as tackle, but I would probably went elsewhere. I think Curtis Weaver was probably still there. I would have probably taken him, but I could understand the value at that pick. I could understand the experience that this guy has, and I could understand the depth you could actually the depth that's actually there with this pick. You could move him around the depth chart, whether it's guard, even tackle too. So it's a solid pick for depth, especially being that this is a guy who actually has experience against big competition. But I give it about a C+ there.
Green Bean, what do you think about the Cameron Clark selection in the 4th round?
Well, I think I like this pick a little bit more than you guys. Now, I probably would have taken Jack Driscoll. That's my personal opinion, but I happen to like Cameron Clark. And this is the thing I want to just point out that to me, Cameron Clark starts to help us make sense of the 1-year signing thing that Joe Douglas was involved in free agency. Guys like Josh Andrews getting signed for a 1-year backup job. These guys, Cameron Clark is officially a part of the pipeline. He's going to be starting, if not by 2021, he'll be our starter by 2022. He's a road grader, very intelligent. He's the only offensive lineman to win MVP. I think it was in 2018. So this is another team captain, but also an MVP. He's a leader among men. He's one of those guys. He can play center. He can play tackle. He can play guard. So he's probably going to actually be a guard for us and not a tackle. He doesn't have the ability to make up the space quite like he'll need to in the NFL. But I actually like him. I'm going to give it a B+, maybe even an A-, because I do think the value of the pipeline is something that we ignored for far too long. And you watch, he'll be starting in a year or two.
So then we roll into the 5th round, and this is a player that a lot of us had. I think I want to say day of, Green Bean and I had this player in our 3rd round, or maybe it was 4th round. The Bryce Hall, the cornerback from Virginia. I'm very high on this pick. I give it an A. I think the guy is a 2nd round, 3rd round draft pick when he's healthy. The guy, I think he tore ligaments in his ankle. I think that was the reason he went down. But he had the most passes defensed in the country in 2018. So I love the pick. I think it's a huge value signing. I think it adds depth to a cornerback room that honestly needs a number 1 corner at some point. I said it earlier in this show. I think cornerback and edge rusher are going to be our 2 biggest positions of need heading into next offseason. So look for our 1st round pick to be one of those 2 positions next year. But I do think adding depth at the cornerback position, someone that could maybe fill Desir's role when Desir leaves after the season, or could fill in for a Bless Austin in the event that he goes down for an injury. I like the pick. I'm giving it an A all day. Matt, what do you think about Bryce Hall?
Yeah, this is an A. This is someone who I thought was a 3rd rounder, and the fact they got him in the 5th round is just great for the Jets. I think he's going to start for this team. Maybe not in 2020, but I think by 2021, there's a realistic chance that he's a starting outside corner for this team. They really needed to address that cornerback room. They added a ton of depth to that position this weekend. I think he did a really good job of that. And Hall, to me, is the premier one of all of them, so I'm going to give it an A.
David, what do you think about the Bryce Hall pick?
I actually give it an A-. I think it's an absolute steal. A guy who's actually a very physical corner. He can play zone, he can play man, but I think he's got a little bit of work to do in mirroring his press coverage, and he just came off some injuries as well. So this could be a starting caliber corner, possibly next year. So I actually agree with Matt on that, because we still have some issues at the cornerback spot. A possible solution for a number 1 corner, I don't know about that yet. He could be a great depth guy. He could be a great rotational piece. But we should still go into next season looking for a legitimate number 1 corner. It looks like next offseason we might have to go address more defensive positions like edge rusher and corner more aggressively. But this could be somebody that could actually start once Pierre Desir leaves, unless Joe Douglas decides to bring Pierre Desir back. I like the guy because of his physicality. He could be an all-around corner. I give it an A- just because of where we actually got him.
So I see in the chat, Fins for Life is talking about how great the Dolphins are going to be, and he seems really hyped up for a guy that took a tackle at number 18 that shouldn't have been taken in the 2nd round. So I think he should probably calm down a little bit. No. I think Tua is the best quarterback in this draft. I think he could be the best quarterback when it's all said and done in this draft. The hip's going to be a huge issue. I really think it's going to be a huge issue with him. I do think that who's their 3rd first-round pick? It was a corner, wasn't it? Didn't they they went with a corner after having a loaded secondary, so that didn't make any sense for me. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of the Dolphins guy. He's got me all fired up.
Ibo Gogini.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sounds like I should be rubbing a lamp to get that guy out of that. It's ridiculous. All right. Enough with that. Let's talk about this Bryce Hall pick, Green Bean. You get to talk about Bryce Hall now.
Yeah, because like you said, I mean, he was a consistent 3rd round pick for me. Now, just so everyone knows, I happen to live in Charlottesville, and he's from UVA, and in Charlottesville, UVA is the town. Like the entire city revolves around UVA, and Bryce Hall is the king of UVA. Joe Reed getting taken before him in this draft was, I mean, no one saw that coming. Bryce Hall is king. Now, if he would have come out in 2018, if he was in the draft, he was a late first, early second all day, every day. The fact that he broke his ankle is what pushed him. The fact that he slid to fifth, I have no explanation for it. I don't know why. He's a starting caliber corner. I agree with what Matt said. It won't be this year. It's going to be 2021. He'll start being prepped to be a starter. He'll be given the opportunity to compete for the job, and he's going to win the job. He's going to be our starting cornerback for the next 5-10 years, whatever it might be. And I love the pick in the 5th round. Absolute steal, A+ all day of the week.
All right, so now we roll into our 6th round. Our 6th round pick, the only one we wound up making in this draft, was Braden Mann, the punter. And this guy has a howitzer for a leg. It's unreal. If you watch some of his highlights, he is bombing punts, like 70-yard punts, like consistently. This guy has an absolutely incredible leg. Now, initially, I was not thrilled with the pick. I didn't think, I like Lachlan Edwards. I thought he could have come back just fine. He played at a top, I would say 15 caliber punter, average or whatever. So I didn't hate that player at all, but I do think the pick is interesting. And when you try to dissect it as, all right, well, what kind of player are you getting in the 6th? Realistically, you're getting a fringe roster guy. At best, probably a depth guy. You're probably not getting anyone more than that at that point in the draft. So if you can select a starting caliber punter and one that can change the field position on you in a hurry, especially when we saw Gase's offense stall out as many times as we did last season, you don't want to guarantee that the offense is going to be better. So if you can flip the field a little bit easier, that makes your defense not have their back against the wall right off the bat. It helps your defense breathe a little bit. They're not, trying to like stop a team from getting in the end zone with just 40 yards. So overall, I'm going to give this I'll give it a B+. I like it. I don't know who I would have taken there other than him. I think at that point, Gandy Golden was gone. Biadez was gone. It was more so just stabs in the dark at that point. So I'll give it a B. Matt, what do you think about the punter selection?
I'm at like a C+. I'm not really a big fan of drafting a punter or a kicker. I'm more like UDFA. Let's sign them just because you only have so many swings in the draft. I understand the likelihood of hitting on a 6th rounder isn't very high, but it's hard for me to get behind drafting a kicker or a punter. That being said, I think he's one of the best punters in college football. He has an absolute boot on his leg. And listen, with the Jets offense the last few years, he's going to be on the field a lot. So we're going to get to know him pretty well.
David, what'd you think about the punter selection?
It kind of caught me off guard taking a punter with a 6th round pick. I thought you could have gotten maybe another depth guy, but a lot of these 6th round or 7th round picks, this is where a lot of the special teamers usually come in. I would prefer to get an undrafted free agent maybe, but the probability of hitting on a special teams player in one of those later rounds is pretty high. And I think that leg is going to come quite handy. Look at how many times the Jets offense were pinned inside their own 10 or 5-yard line last year. And if that happens again, that leg is going to come in handy where he could probably bomb punts probably to way over the other side of the field without getting into the end zone because I just lost my train of thought. Well, he's also a guy that could also make tackles too. So it's definitely an interesting pick, but I can understand the value with that pick in the 6th round. I give it maybe about a B.
Green Bean, what'd you think about the punter in the 6th round? Uh-oh. I think Green Bean's frozen. He's back. The picture's back.
Sadly to say,
there he goes.
I knew it was.
Sorry. No. I can hear you now.
Back.
Yeah, I'm in the country right now. I'm by a lake. So can you guys hear me though? Am I back for real?
Yep, you're back.
All right, good. So I knew that they were going to take this damn punter. So I was kind of braced for it, but there were so many players I wanted that were still there, like the Quez Watkins, the KJ Hills, like those types of guys. They were all still there. And when we took them, I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I was really hoping that was 211. That's what I wanted. I wanted the punter that we were going to take to be a 211. That said, they're going for it here, man. They're trying to have the best punter in the NFL. He really excels at placement kicking. From what I understand, Greg Williams was one of the loudest voices to draft this guy. Wants his defense to have a good opportunity to start within the red zone, so he can dial up specific types of defenses and blitzes and stuff. And if that's what they're thinking, if that's why they want this guy, because they have a specific game plan in mind, and he's the final piece, you need a guy that can do that, a very specific type of guy, then I love it. It's a B for me.
2613 Mike, thank you for the super chat. He says, intrigued by undrafted free agent Huff. That's Bryce Huff, the edge rusher, I believe, right? I started watching a little bit on him. He looks like he's legit. I think, I don't know if it was Green Bean that was telling me, but someone was saying that he was ranked higher than Weaver, I think, by a spot, but behind an A, maybe. Someone was telling me that. If that's true, I'm all for it. I like the edge rusher selection. Did any of you guys do any work on looking at Huff at all? Do you guys have anything to add to that?
The edge?
Yeah.
Oh, he's fast. He is really fast off the edge. He probably is going to need a little bit more size on him for the next level, but he's pretty quick.
I like it.
I like him.
So, Mumtaz, thank you for the super chat. He says, in a couple of years, you will be buying Cameron Clark jersey, guaranteed. By the way, Matt did a great job on undrafted free agents. So if you haven't checked out Matt's video, make sure you check out Matt's video on all that. Now we move into the final pick of the day. We were supposed to have pick 211. We wound up trading it to the Colts. This is the third Colts corner that we've brought in with Hairston, Desir, and now Wilson. When your team goes undefeated, let me know. Hey, that's 1972. Get your head out of the into this century. Sorry, Fins for life. God, he's got me fired up today. So the Jets wind up trading for Quincy Wilson, the cornerback from the Colts. That's the second round pick from the Colts in 2017. So same year that Jamal Adams and Marcus May came out. I don't know. I don't know enough about the guy. From what I can see, the Rex Hogan connection is very strong. Rex Hogan is our assistant GM. He's from Indianapolis. That's why we have 3 Colt cornerbacks coming in. I'm shocked that they're all cornerbacks, but whatever. I guess for some reason, maybe he specialized in the secondary when he was over there. Yeah, I don't know. At 211, a lot of us wanted Rodrigo Blankenship, but I don't know. I think I would for this particular pick and use of pick, I would give it. I'm going to give it a C- or a D+, because I think I would have preferred a rookie on a 4-year deal than a journeyman, I shouldn't say journeyman, but like a meh sort of corner going into the final year of his deal. Just sort of my thinking. I mean, maybe you can get a comp pick for him if he plays lights out, but I just don't see that happening. Matt, what'd you think about 211 for a corner?
See, I'm a little different than you. I'm going to give it a B-. I like taking that pick, 211, and flipping it into a former second-round pick. Mm-hmm. I know last year he wasn't great, and injuries have kind of derailed him. But if he stays healthy, I think he could give you a little bit more value than what that 6th-rounder could have. I understand the whole contract situation, but even if he does play relatively well, he's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. So if you want to bring him back on a cheap deal, I'm all for that. And I think they really needed to add some depth there. Even if they used that pick and took Lamar Jackson in that spot, I would have been cool with that too. I'm sure we'll talk about him in a little bit, but I don't mind it really. I think he's going to be like the 5th guy down on the depth chart anyway. So I'm not going to get too crazy over it.
David, what'd you think about trading 211 for a cornerback?
I actually like the trade. Quincy Wilson was somebody I actually looked at a couple years ago in the 2017 draft when we were looking at defensive prospects. This was somebody who is a pretty physical corner, but he couldn't stay healthy, and that's probably why he fell to the 2nd round. This pickup is definitely interesting to where you're getting low risk, high reward out of this guy. He probably will be more of a rotational guy, maybe 4th cornerback at best in the depth chart. because of his injury history, and that's why the Colts only shipped him for a 6th-round pick. But if this guy can stay healthy and he could really mold under Greg Williams' defense, then I definitely think you could possibly even consider bringing him back. The guy definitely has some value to him. So it's low risk, high reward for me. I give it about a B.
So real quick, Shaq, thank you for the super chat. He says, did Adam Gase's son really solve a Rubik's Cube? I don't know if his son solved a Rubik's Cube, but I saw Gandy Golden solve a Rubik's Cube in like a minute and 9 seconds or something like that. I was like, son of a batch. That's the receiver I wanted. I wanted that guy. Green Bean, what'd you think about 211 for a cornerback?
Well, look, I get the logic. It's hard to disagree with the logic, but I hated it. I wanted Kenny Willekes so bad in that spot. The fact that he slid down that far, he is the perfect guy to bring to this team. Won MVP 2 times, only player in Michigan State history to ever do that, especially from being a walk-on. I don't know. It broke my heart. KJ Hill was still there. A few other guys that I really liked in that spot. And this guy, I don't love him, but I get it. I do. I get it. Just like was said, using a late 6th, which is pretty much near it. It's pretty much a 7th-round pick. Flip that for a 2nd-round pick earlier. And the Colts thing, the reason why we're getting all their defensive backs is that they switched from a system that is very like the system that we now run. So when they flip their systems, these guys don't fit as well as they do with us. They're the perfect fit for us. So I do get it. Hairston, Desir, and this fella. Like I said, I get it. I hated the pick, though. I'm going to give it a D.
All right, so now we'll go into our undrafted free agents, and I'm not going to break into all of them because I have not done enough research on them to talk overly intelligently. Let's just bring up one player of, I think there was 8 that we signed that you guys like or that we should watch out for. Matt touched on it before. Lamar Jackson, the cornerback. The guy's tall. I think I saw him listed at 6'3". That is a massive corner. I'm excited to see what we could see from him in the preseason. Hopefully we can... I don't think he'll play on our roster this year. I think he might be a practice squad kind of stash player for a year. It sort of depends how many teams we're calling him and if we think he is at risk. If he gets like a phantom injury in training camp, yeah. I'm okay with that, stashing him on the IR for a year. But I like Lamar Jackson probably the most of the picks that I've sort of looked at. Matt, is there someone that you like?
Yeah, I'm big with you on Lamar. I think he probably should have been drafted. The other guy that I'll name is the wide receiver out of Georgia, Cager. He's just a big dude. So I could definitely see him making the roster and just being like a situational red zone threat where they're just going to throw the ball up to him real high and see if he can catch it. I think he probably has the best chance of making the roster outside of Lamar Jackson.
David, what do you think about the undrafted free agents? Is there someone that you think Jet fans should be keeping their eye out for?
I do actually like Lamar Jackson. I actually thought he was going to get drafted. He's a pretty physical corner, but he's probably going to be a special teamer guy. But he could definitely work his way up the depth chart a little bit. So I think I haven't done enough research on Lamar Jackson yet, but I know based off his height and how physical he can play against big-bodied receivers, possibly you can get something out of that. The probability on a lot of these undrafted free agents to succeed is very, very low. So there's a good chance you're not going to get anything starting caliber-wise out of him, but he could probably be the best guy in terms of potential and in terms of really developing out of these undrafted free agents, in my opinion.
Green Bean, is there any free agent that you're looking at that the Jets brought in that you like more than some of the others?
Well, look, I think my love for Lamar Jackson is documented, but you guys mentioned him, so I won't get into him. Say this, he's going to be starting on this team. If not cornerback, it's going to be safety in 2 years. It's going to be Bryce Hall and Lamar Jackson. You heard it here first, but I will take a second and mention Javelin Guidry. First of all, his name's Javelin. So I don't know what that's all about, but it means something. It's rare, and I'm in. Javelin Guidry, if you didn't know, ran a 4.29 40-yard dash. So we were all making a big deal about Ruggs this year. That's 1/100th of a second difference from Ruggs. This guy is the reason, or could be the reason why Brian Poole's one-year contract may end up being exactly that. He's a dynamic nickel corner, and he's lightning fast. He's aggressive. He's really got a shot. to make the team, and I love that they brought him in. Fastest guy we've ever had, Robbie Anderson, who, as far as speed goes.
Yeah, look, I think there's
everybody.
I think there's a lot to talk about, and I know the guys in the chat are anxious to start talking. I apologize. We went over that 8:30 sort of time frame that we were looking at, but we're going to jump into some phone calls and get your guys' opinions on the picks. Let me throw that in here. Just remember to keep your questions short because I'm going to repeat them to the panel, and then we'll get into it there. We want to get through as many questions as possible, so we don't want to keep anyone on the phone too long. But phone lines are now open. Number is on the screen. For Fins Fan for Life, I see you in there, and I want you to know we're doing an AFC East panel, I think on Sunday, with me, #sports, DNP, and Dougly Do Wrong. So if you want to check out some Patriots, Bills, and Fins news Sunday at some point. It might be over at the #sports channel. I'm not exactly sure just yet.
To send a voicemail. Okay. I've sent the caller to voicemail.
No! I just tried to pick up the phone and the person went to voicemail. Sorry person who went to voicemail. I didn't mean to do that. 60 must be smoking on something. What the heck is he talking about? This guy, Fins Fan for Life, just driving me up a goddamn wall tonight.
Call from
Seth from New Jersey.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Talking Jets. What's on your mind?
So, Denzel Mims won 13th out of all receivers. Where do you think he should have won?
Say that again?
Denzel Mims went 13th out of all the receivers. Where do you think he should have won?
I don't think did he go 13th? I don't think he was the 13th receiver taken. Do you guys know if he was the Oh, maybe he was. Who were the receivers taken? Mims. Sorry, I forgot you guys can't hear it. How many receivers were taken ahead of Mims? I think he was definitely better than 13th, if that's what he wound up being. I would say if I had to rank the receivers in the order of which I really liked them, I'd say it would be Lamb, Judy, Ruggs, Jefferson.
13th.
He was 13th. Damn, okay. So I would put Mims at probably 6th or 7th on my list, I would say overall. I liked Pittman a lot. I would put him on the same level as Pittman, a little bit higher than Claypool. I didn't think Claypool should have gone ahead of him, but that's sort of where I stand on that. I'll get some feedback on these guys and see what they think. Matt, where did you think Mims ranked among the wide receivers and where he maybe should have been drafted in terms of number order?
Yeah, he's 5 for me, right after Justin Jefferson. So I would have put him at. So I guess that would put him at somewhere in pick 20 to 25 in that range. I think that probably made a lot more sense than 59. I think he's definitely a top 5 receiver in this class.
David, what'd you think about Mims and where he should have been picked, if you think that, or was he drafted too high? Who knows?
Top 5 is, in my opinion, is debatable. I could say definitely top 10, 100%. I actually had him going to a team like the Packers, and there were plenty of receiver-needy teams that could have taken him, but I actually have him in top 10. I would probably say he's probably just below top 5. I would say he's number 6 in my board.
Greenbean, what'd you think about Mims? Where'd you have him ranked?
Yeah, he was number 4 for me. I'm blown away. KJ Hamler, Van Jefferson, Chase Claypool, Brandon Ayuk, they were all taken before him. It blew my mind. I think that every team is going to rue the day. That's what I think.
All right, let's jump into another caller. So remember, guys, keep the questions short so I can repeat them to our panel. And we can discuss everything. New moderators in the chat, TJ Decker and Justin Levine. Congratulations, you guys are new moderators in the chat. Just do me a favor. You don't have to ban everyone. Just Fins Fan, give him a little timeout. He doesn't. I don't mind him being in there and trolling a little bit because I think it generates some interesting conversation. But congratulations on being dipped into the mod roles over there. Don't ban FM. You don't have to ban FM. I've talked to FM on here as much as I completely disagree with his takes on almost everything. You could keep FM in the chat. All right, we got a caller on the line.
Call from
Nick, what's up, dude? Welcome to Talking Jets.
What's up, Ryan? How you doing?
Hanging in there. What'd you have on your mind?
Now that the draft's over, what do you think Yannick Ngakwe's value is? And question number 2 is,
What?
watching Denzel Mims combine and everything, he kind of reminds me of
Walk around?
DK Metcalf a little bit. So what's your player comp on Denzel Mims? Have a good night.
Ooh, you too. Good question. So he's asking what we think. What is our player comparison for Denzel Mims? He mentioned. Actually, I'm not going to say the name because you guys didn't hear the name. But what's our player comparison for Denzel Mims? And then also, what do we think the trade value is now for Yannick Ngakoue now that the draft is over? Matt, I'll kick it to you first. You can start with whichever one you want first.
Okay, I'll do Yannick first because I'm still thinking of a comp in my head. So I think for Yannick, you could probably get him for a second now. I think that everything he's done on Twitter and going crazy and stuff like that, he's a bit much with that, and I don't think he's helping the Jaguars get any kind of value back. In terms of what you're getting from Denzel Mims, he's a tall, fast receiver. I know a lot of people are probably going to point to Robbie Anderson, but I think his upside's a little bit higher than Robbie's. He's a more polished receiver coming out than what Robbie was. So I'm going to say like a rich man's Robbie Anderson.
David, what about you? What do you think Ngakoue's trade value is right now, and then what would the player comparison be for Mims?
Well, first off, thank you to the caller. That was actually a pretty good question. For Denzel Mims, big body receiver, really fast, especially on the deep ball with that kind of speed as a big body guy. He's 216 pounds, so I would have to disagree with Matt on Robbie Anderson because he's got a bigger frame. So I could actually say he's more of – I could actually compare him more to a Julio Jones or A.J. Green kind of guy because he can definitely run a solid deep route, especially with that kind of speed for a big body guy, and a red zone threat who you can use in red zone situations. I would actually say around maybe Julio to A.J. Green. In regards to Yannick, he's a professional athlete, and the way he was acting on Twitter, basically just wanting to get out of Jacksonville, and he's kind of barking like a little baby about it. I would actually say at this point his draft stock is his value is continuing to drop. You could probably get maybe a late first round pick at best, but I could see it being an early second for somebody like Yannick at this point, just because of the way he's acting. And you also have to give him a big contract, and his etiquette as a professional is kind of questionable at this point.
Greenbean, what do you think of Yannick's trade value, and what would your player comparison be for Denzel Mims?
Well, I don't know if like all the baloney going on recently necessarily affected his trade value all that much. I mean, I think he was always going to be a first or second and change kind of thing, maybe second and a player. I think that's what they're still going to end up getting. When we get near to the trade deadline and teams are a pass rusher away for their big playoff push, I think they won't be afraid to throw a first to the Jaguars, very similar to what Dallas did with Amari Cooper a couple of years ago. So I think that they'll still get a first or at worst a second for him. Now, as far as Denzel Mims, I think he reminds me a lot of Mr. Bray Bray. Bray Bray Edwards, our lover muffins from the 2009-2010 Jets. I miss that guy. He also reminds me a little bit of Brandon Marshall. It's different, but that's what he reminds me of, and I think that's what we can expect. Remember Braylon Edwards, when he caught that ball, he looked like he was going to be caught, and he just turned on those long strides, and nobody could get him. That's Denzel Mims. He's going to burn anybody that he needs to, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting football, man. Brace yourselves. It's coming.
All right, so the player that the caller compared Mims to was specifically because of the combine, but DK Metcalf is who he brought up. I think draft stock wise, I think he is similar to what happened to DK. Like, I think Mims was a first round pick that wound up going later than he should have. Same with DK. I would not put them in the same conversation as far as type of wide receiver. I would actually. I saw someone bring it up in the chat. I actually like Brandon Marshall as a comparison to Denzel Mims. I think someone who struggled with drops a little bit early on in his career, faster than you would give him credit for. He's tall. Now, I think Marshall was 6'5" and Mims is 6'3", so a little bit disparity in the height right there. I do like Braylon Edwards. I think that is a good comparison as well. Yeah, I'm good with either one of those. I think Mims should have gone higher than he did, which is sort of like the DK Metcalf thing, but I compare him more to an Edwards or Marshall. In terms of Yannick, I think second is the floor that you could get for him. I'm almost positive you could get a first-round pick probably close to the trade deadline. It's going to be a matter of if the Jags even want to deal with that. They might take a second-round pick before the season just to kind of get him out of here rather than have him sit on the bench or whatever he's going to do for until the trade deadline. It's going to be interesting because I think first round pick from a team like, maybe Seattle, that's like, they didn't get an edge rusher or they lost Clowney potentially, so maybe they try to bring in someone else. If it's a second round pick, I'm trading for Ndakwe all day. There's no way you could stop me from trading for him. I think he's phenomenal. Joe S., I did see your super chat in there. Let me get up to it. I think you were asking, any chance the Jets sign Logan Ryan? I don't think so. I think the Ashton Davis pick pretty much sealed the deal on Logan Ryan. I think, it's probably, with the money we have left, I would prefer we go after a edge rusher, whether it be Vinny Curry or Everson Griffin, more than cornerback, just because I think Bryce Hall and Ashton Davis and even some of the guys we brought in an undrafted free agency at least round out the cornerback room a little bit better than the edge rusher room's looking right now. What do you guys think, Matt, Logan Ryan?
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed post-draft. I don't mind the player. I just don't see a fit anymore.
David, what about you?
I'm in the same boat. I think the Ashton Davis and Bryce Hall pick kind of sealed the deal a little bit. I don't think the Jets are going to go out and overpay for a corner like Logan Ryan. They're not really one player away right now or one cornerback away from being a win-now team. So I think, I do like the player, but at this point, I think the chance of signing him could be washed away.
Greenbean, what do you think about Logan Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I like him, but I agree. I think the ship has sailed. It was a contingency plan, and I think that if we've done anything in this last draft process, is we've taken care of getting some cornerbacks in the house. We're fine.
All right, let's jump back into the calls. Guys, if you are calling in, make sure you keep your question short because I have to repeat it to everyone else on the panel. They're not going to be able to hear your calls. But yeah, call in. I see a bunch of calls popping through, so if you don't get through, just try giving it another ring. For some reason, it doesn't want to push through every call. It just pushes through all of them all at once. All right, caller on the line.
Call from
Liam.
Liam, what's up, brother? Welcome to Talking Jets.
Yeah, what's up, Brian? How you doing, man?
Hanging in there. What's on your mind?
All right, so I know hindsight is 2020, but if you were to do the draft over again, would you draft one of the wide receivers, whoever you want to take, and then either in the third round or second round, you draft Josh Jones? Because I know he fell way lower than he should have. Thanks.
Ooh, okay, good question. So this question coming from Liam was a hypothetical. Hindsight's always 2020. If you could go back in the draft and plug in Josh Jones, say in the third round or wherever he went. I think he was in the third round, or third or fourth round he wound up going. Would you take Josh Jones in the third round and then instead address a different need, maybe at 11, or trade back and then address other needs? Or would you still take Becton at 11, even though you could have gotten Jones in the third round? Matt, what do you think about that?
It's fun to play these games now. I think I'll answer it like this. I would have still took Mekhi Becton, but you can make the case of taking Jones over the safety in my mind. I think you can make a legitimate case for that. So you have Jones on the right side and Becton on the left side and really fortify that offensive line.
David, what would you have done anything different knowing you could have gotten Jones in the third round or whatever he wound up going in?
It's easy to say now that you could have done this and you could have done that because the draft's over. But Liam, that's actually a pretty good question. I would have still taken Mekhi Becton, and in regards to Josh Jones, I actually would have probably taken him over the safety. You could have solidified depth at the offensive line in a much more efficient manner. Because Josh Jones fell that far, you could have actually taken him as a guy that you could put on the depth chart to actually compete with George Fant. So I actually would still take Becton, and I would actually have taken Jones in the 3rd round over the safety. And if he even fell further, maybe even over the edge, but who knows? I would have preferred over the safety.
Green Bean, what do you think about Jones in the 3rd? Would that have changed your 1st-round pick?
No, well, let's make no mistake. Josh Jones was part of the 2nd tier of offensive tackles. I mean, we liked him. And when it was looking like all 4 might go, I think that he was definitely a better choice than Austin Jackson or, Ezra Cleveland or, some of the others. But I wouldn't change taking, Mekhi Becton because of Josh Jones. No way. And, interestingly, Josh Jones was taken 4 picks after Ashton Davis. So he was there. But I don't like the idea of Becton and Jones. I like the idea of Becton and Isaiah Wilson, or Becton and some of these other guys. But Josh Jones is a left tackle. Make no mistake about it. So is Becton is a left tackle. These guys, he can play right, but he's a left tackle. When you don't switch guys who play left tackle to right tackle. You try to do the other thing. You try to get a guy who plays right tackle and see if they can play left. If they can't, they go to right tackle. Josh Jones has never played right tackle, so I don't like that whole idea. So I know I just spun out into outer space there, but the answer is no.
So I'll sort of piggyback that off with Green Bean. You could convince me maybe like to include Jones in with Becton. I would not have passed on Jones and not have taken Becton. I think Becton was the right choice at 11. I do think that we've spent so much money both on Fant and in draft compensation with Edoga that adding another tackle to that rotation so early on would have been a little rough. I mean, maybe you like it more than the safety because at least you're helping Sam Darnold and you're helping out the offensive line. I could understand that argument. I think for me personally, I actually do like the safety more than Josh Jones, but I'm almost splitting hairs at that point. I don't know. It would have been interesting. I think he fell that far because there was something wrong with him. So I don't know what that is because we had him ranked higher. A lot of draft slates had him ranked higher. So I don't know exactly why he fell the way he did, but I tend to say I would keep Mekhi Becton and either take Jones in the 3rd or pass on him. I would have been fine either way. All right, new caller on the line.
Call from
Charlie Morrow.
Charlie, what's up, brother? Welcome to Talking Jets.
Hey, I just have one question. I would
Sure.
like to hear everybody's season predictions.
Say that again? I didn't hear it. Could you say your question again?
Season predictions.
Season predictions. All right. Cool. Good stuff. All right. Now that the draft is over, we can start to begin to think about our season predictions. We do know that we are versing the NFC West, the AFC West, the Colts, and the Browns for next year in addition to the AFC East. We don't know the order yet. The schedule, I believe, comes out in about 2 weeks. I think it's the May 9th or something like that. So what are our predictions for the Jets season this year? I'll start it off, I guess. So we'll start in the division, our 6 games. I'm going to say we split all of them. I think Buffalo's probably a harder split. I think Miami and New England could be a sweep in favor of us. But we're going to say 3 wins in the division. We already beat the Raiders this past year. I think we could do it again. I'm not afraid of the Chargers with Herbert at the helm. I'm not afraid of the Broncos. So that puts me at 6 wins. NFC West, I think we can beat the Cardinals. I'm not sold on the Rams, I'll be honest. I think they are a winnable game, potentially. I don't remember off the top of my head if it's home or away. Then I think we can beat the Browns. That puts me at 9 wins. I think we lose to Seattle, the Chiefs, the 49ers, and the Colts for sure, plus our division. Matt, what do you think our record is overall?
I think they're going to be a more watchable and a more fun team than last year, but finish with either the same record or a slightly worse record. I think they're either 6-10 or 7-9.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is they have a much harder schedule this year than last year. They didn't have to travel at all last year. Their entire schedule, I think the furthest they went was Cincinnati. They barely traveled. Now you're going to have to go to the West Coast multiple times. You're going to have to go to play on the road against the Rams. Who else is going to be on the road? In Seattle would be on the road too.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the Jets don't travel well past the Mississippi River for whatever reason. It seems anytime they play west of the Mississippi, they suck. I think it's going to be really, really tough for this team to win more than 7 games. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, Darnold isn't our guy because of that. Like, I think he could still play well, but the teams that we're playing are better.
David, what are your predictions for this record for this upcoming season?
Well, our schedule is a lot more brutal this year. I think it just went into a complete 180 in terms of traveling. We went from where we barely have to travel any sort of mileage to now having to go to the West Coast. I believe it's about four times this year. And then you also got to go to Indy, and then you got to travel inside your division. So the traveling is definitely going to be a factor, especially since historically we haven't really produced much on the West Coast. And I consider this year a test year for a lot of these guys, especially the defense, because everybody's praising Greg Williams and talking about how much of a solid defense we had. The defense is going to get tested. Getting C.J. Mosley back is going to be huge, but the defense is going to get tested. The offensive line is going to get tested, and even Sam Darnold is going to get tested. So I could see us splitting with the division. I could see us splitting with New England and Miami, probably both our wins at home. Buffalo, it could be a little harder, so I could see us being at 3 wins there. I could see us beating the Chargers. I could actually see us beating the Browns. So I have us at 5 right there. I could actually see us being 8-8 at our ceiling just because the schedule is tough and the players are going to be tested and the travel is definitely going to be interesting. But due to the depth that we have, I'm going to say 8-8.
Green Bean, what about you? What do you think your record prediction is for the season?
Remember when I said we were going to go 3-13? Remember that?
Are you still on this 3-13 bandwagon?
No. Listen, I'm going to put on my bipolar homer hat, and I'm going to tell you something right now, and I mean it, is that if we can protect this Sam Darnold character, if we can protect him, if this line actually works out, I think we can beat anybody. Dude, we got some receivers. Perryman is going to surprise a lot of people. He had a much better year than people are thinking. It's not just 5 games, okay? Mims is an actual stud. Crowder, we know what Crowder is. Wait till you see my boy Vincent Smith light up the universe. Perine, Bell, all these guys. We have some legit talent. If we can protect Sam Darnold, we're going to shoot out with anybody 10-6. Playoffs.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
We're taking the rule change playoff spot, Ryan.
So I do agree. I think the 7th seed is probably our shoot for the stars kind of moment this year. I do think I agree with Matt to an extent that the schedule is significantly harder. The distance traveled is going to be a lot further than it was last year. And I do think we could see a similar record to this year with far better play and possibly a worse record. But I think if you look at the quality of play over these games, like we got blown out by Cincinnati. We got blown out by the Dolphins. We got blown out, it felt like numerous times throughout the year. And I would venture to guess that we won't have the blowouts quite as much as we did last year. Like we might lose like 1-score games more frequently. But I think the ceiling is probably 9-7. I think the floor, I'm going to say the floor is 6-10. It will fall somewhere in between there. I'm gonna hope for 9-7. I'll hope for 9-7. I'll be overly optimistic on that because look, I could see us just as easily. I could see us sweeping the Patriots. I could see us sweeping the Dolphins. I could see us beating one against the Bills, and that's 5 wins right there. plus the wins I had already, potentially talked about. So would it shock me to see us go 10-6? Probably, I guess, but 9-7. Sorry about that. With the microphone.
Right.
Would it shock me? Yes, it would shock me to see this Adam Gase-led team go 10-6. But I think 8-8 is realistically what we'll see this year, and it sounds like a cop-out answer because it's just center of the pack. But I think that's honestly the truth. Mumtaz, thank you so much for the super chat. He says Jabari Zuniga, stud, right? Injuries are accidents. I think he's gonna be good. I really do. I think he seems to have a really high motor, and he's pretty fast off the edge. Now, I saw him use a little bit of a spin move in some of his highlights, not quite the way that Polite did, but from what I've heard, Zuniga is really good. I heard his call with Joe Douglas and I think it was Adam Gase and Greg Williams were on the phone. They did like a whole conference call, and I think Chris Johnson was on it too. The guy seems like he's ready and raring to go. I'm looking forward to him. Matt, David, Greenbean, anything to add on Zuniga?
I like him. I think he has a chance to be a rotational player in year one and hopefully a starter after that.
All right, guys,
Yeah,
I'm going to
I
jump in.
I like him a lot.
I'm going to jump into some more phone calls. Remember, keep the questions brief so I can reiterate them to the panel here because they're not going to be able to hear your questions. Boom. It says reload the page, reload the page. All right. So good. So good. It's such a long process. I was exhausted after that 3-day stream. It was 17 and a half hours in like 3 days or like 2.5 days or whatever you want to say. Because we were done streaming by the time we started, like time-wise, on the following Thursday. So you're talking Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's basically like 2.5 days worth of streaming. But it was fun. We had a lot of people in here. We had, I think, our peak number at any given time, or at our highest point, was around the Mims pick. I think it was around 1,700 people at selection. Yeah, it was bananas. And then even the last day, I think we peaked out around, I think we might have hit 1,300 on the last day as our peak. We stayed probably around 600 throughout the entirety of the third day of the draft. But you guys hung around with us. We did a bunch of giveaways. We did a bunch of just kind of hanging out. It was nice to sort of get the shoot the shit style conversation with everyone. We, along with the whole Hot Rod David comments that we saw a bunch of comments in relation to Matt being the who did they compare you to, Matt? It was
anybody with hair, just about.
Anyone with red hair. I think it was Connor Hughes is what we were talking about, right? I think Connor Hughes was one of them. All right, we got a call coming in. We'll get back to this.
Logan.
Logan, what's up, brother? Welcome to Talking Jets.
Hey, Ryan. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Hanging in there. What's on your mind?
So I just got a couple quick questions for you. Just wondering what you guys think the breakout player for the Jets in 2020 is going to be. Mm-hmm. And then also adding on to that, kind of the reverse is who do you think is going to take the biggest step down for the Jets in 2020? Thanks.
Ooh, good question. I like that. All right, so he's asking who. It's a two-part question. Who is going to be our breakout player of the year, and who is going to be our disappointment of the year? Matt, I'll kick it to you first.
Okay, breakout player. I'm gonna say Sam Darnold, and that's kind of a cop-out. I feel like because it's not like he's coming out of nowhere. He's one of the biggest name guys on the team. But I think he takes that leap forward. I think he plays 16 games. I think he probably throws for close to 4,000 yards, somewhere in the high 20s in touchdowns, and I think the turnovers come down. So I think he probably takes the biggest step. As for the biggest disappointment, it's tough to say. I might go Bless Austin, and the reason why I say that is I'm not sold on him staying healthy. So I'm going to bet on him having an injury-plagued season and not playing that much.
David, what about you? Who are your breakout and disappointing players predicting for this upcoming season?
That is actually a very good question. Breakout player, I would actually Sam Darnold could definitely be considered one, but I would have to say Quinnen Williams. I mean, the guy had an interesting year last year. He didn't have a good rookie year, but he was also playing through an ankle injury. But second year guy, I know he had the whole thing with the gun, but if he comes into the season healthy, then hopefully we can see him be that pass rusher that we expected him to be last year. He was picked third for a reason. And I don't think it's right to give up on a guy like him after 1 year, especially since we picked him third overall. So I'm going to say Quinnen Williams is going to be my breakout player. Disappointment player? Man, that's another tough one. I would have to say, I would actually have to agree with Matt. I would say Bless Austin. I mean, he had a few good games last year, but a second-year corner who's coming off a serious injury, having to play in the number 2 role against a lot of top-notch receivers, that's going to put a lot of pressure on a young kid like him. So I would have to say Bless Austin.
Green Bean, who is your breakout player of the year, and who is going to be your disappointing player of the year?
My breakout player of the year is going to be Rashad Perryman. We are going to see that guy has number 1 receiver potential. He'll get 1,000 yards. Without an issue, maybe even more. I think we're going to love him, and we're going to wonder how he ever even made it to our team. Now, the biggest disappointment is going to be Jordan Jenkins. We're going to see that his 7 sacks a year are just that. It's just 7 lame sacks that don't really change the game. I like Jordan Jenkins, but I think that his 1-year contract is going to be seen as very good foresight by Joe Douglas, and we're going to let him walk. And guys like Huff and Zuniga and some new guys next year are going to take his place, and we're going to step up that whole position next year.
All right, so my breakout player, I guess I'm not surprised that no one said it, but I really like Chris Herndon a lot. And I'm going to say Herndon is going to be my breakout player of the year. I thought he was posed to have a great season with Sam last year until he got knocked out, and then Sam got knocked out. So it wound up being a whole clusterfuck there. But I think Herndon is the breakout player for me. I think in terms of disappointing player, I'm going to take a little bit of an odd stance. Part of me wanted to say Brian Poole because I really like Brian Poole, and he played phenomenally well last year, but I think we could be disappointed in him because he just might come back to the average as opposed to playing what we saw last year. I'm going to say Mekhi Becton as a disappointment, just because left tackle, it's generally a very hard position to play year 1 in the NFL. You're going to get beat up a lot. I think it's going to be better than what we saw last year. So in that respect, maybe we're not disappointed, but I think with what we saw from him in college, I think he could be a slight disappointment coming to the pros. Now, that said, that's a tough one because it's all subjective. It's all based on what your expectation is for him. I like Matt's answer with Bless Austin. I think that's a spot-on person to be able to look at and just kind of think like, okay, this guy had injury history. He played well last year. Was that above the level that he could play this year against a harder schedule? We're versing some very tough pass rushers this year with the Chargers. There's who else we got on that? I'm sure Seattle's going to be coming after us fast. You got the Rams in there. I think it's going to be a lot of work for a rookie tackle this year. Not that I'm saying he's going to be bad. I just think it might be a little bit more of a disappointment than we might be thinking we're getting DeBrickashaw Ferguson year 3, not year 1. DeBrickashaw Ferguson year 1 was not the all-star left tackle that we all know him as. So that's sort of where I went with that player. You guys can yell at me all you want for that, but
it's a good point, man.
It was a good question. It was a good question. I really like that question because you could have gone so many different directions with it. Guys, phone lines are open if you want to call in. Remember, please keep the question short because I have to reiterate it back to the panel. If you have not followed these guys, their channels are all in the description down below. Make sure you follow Green Bean, David, and Matt on all their respective YouTube channels. And we've got a caller on the line.
Call from
Peter.
Peter, what's up, brother? Welcome to Talking Jets.
Yo, what's up, Ryan? How you doing?
Hanging in there. What's on your mind?
I'm just curious. You guys are just talking about the record and what they were doing. I'm thinking that we could probably win the division at like 9-7 at 8 or 8-8.
Okay.
We'll definitely make the 7 playoff spot.
Okay, all right, that's really interesting. So you do know that if we were to win the division, we automatically get a playoff spot. The seventh, so the 4, 5, or the 5, 6, 7 seeds are the wild cards. So if you win your division, you do lock in one of those top 4 spots. But you're thinking we could get into the playoffs even if we, don't.
Yeah.
You think we could get that 7th spot? All right, that's interesting. I'll ask the panel. I'll see what they think. Good stuff. So what he's asking, or sort of saying, is we were talking about the record. He thinks, or I should word it in a question. Do you think we could win the division with a record like 9-7? Like, where do we see that? Where do we see the Bills finishing? The Patriots are kind of a hard ball right now, and then the Dolphins. I don't really predict them to win the division, but I think we could talk about the Bills. So let's pull up the Bills schedule. Or actually, we could just know the Bills schedule because the Bills got the 2nd seed, or they didn't win the division. Or no, they did win the division, right? Because the Patriots. Or no, the Patriots won.
No, they were the wild card.
Yeah, so they were the wild card. So they're playing the Steelers. Is that right? They're playing the Steelers and the. Who's the other team in the South? The Jaguars? No, not the Jaguars. 1, 2, 3.
About who they played last year in the playoffs?
No, well, I'm talking about the Bills and who their record, because they're facing the AFC West, NFC West, and whoever is 2nd place in the North and the South.
Right. Yeah, so then it would be the Steelers and the Colts, probably. No, Titans.
Titans, yeah, okay. So, do I think the Bills? I think the Bills are going to be better than 9-7. I really do. I think they did. Our whole division faced an easy schedule last year. I'm gonna say I don't think the winner of the East comes out 9-7. I think 10-6 is gonna win that division. I do think you could get into the playoffs with 9-7 for sure. I think that 7th seed is probably going to be 9-7 or 8-8. But I think for the division, I think 10-6 is gonna have to be it. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the Bills win the division at 10-6. I think the Patriots are going to be 8-8, 9-7, and like flirt with a wild card spot. I think the Jets are right after that at somewhere 6, 7, 8 wins, and then Miami's going to be somewhere around 5 or 6 wins. I don't think the Jets get the division. I think Buffalo, as much as I dislike their quarterback, I think their roster is very, very good overall. I think they have a good coach, and they're building well around Allen. I would be very surprised if the Jets finished in the top 7 teams of the AFC. I just don't see it yet. I think when you look around the conference, I still like a lot of the teams in the AFC South better. I think both the Titans and Houston, despite all their issues, are still better. In the North, I mean, obviously you have the Ravens and the Steelers. I think a healthy Steelers team is better than the Jets. I think they're probably about on par with the Browns. And in the West, I mean, obviously Kansas City's better. And I think you're on about the same level as Denver. So I would be very surprised if that's our team next year.
David, what record do you think makes gets the division record, or gets the division champion, and then could the Jets sneak into the wild card?
The Jets sneaking into the wild card, I think with the 7th seed, it's more possible, especially if they do go 8-8 or 9-7. Matt brought up a great point, but I think the Jets. I think the Bills would probably win the division at 11-5. Sean McDermott has proven that he is a strong head coach. I mean, I know the Bills had an easier schedule last year, but the Bills are a powerful team on defense. Their defense has definitely been top notch the last couple of years. Their offense has upgraded with Stephon Diggs. The pressure is going to be on Josh Allen to see how he can actually now utilize the receiving corps and maximize his value with a guy like Stephon Diggs there, who is a legitimate number 1 receiver. So much like the Jets and pretty much the rest of the division, the Bills are going to be put to the test. Sean McDermott is going to be put to the test, and so is the offense as a whole. Their defense, I think, could definitely hold their ground to where they've went up against a lot of these top-notch offenses, but their offense is going to be put to the test. Stephon Diggs, you trade a first-round pick for him. It's going to be a test there. Tough defenses you're versing this year for the Bills. I think the Bills could win at 11-5, and I could definitely see the Patriots or even the Jets. I think they could compete for that 2nd spot in the division, and they could probably flirt with that 7th wildcard spot, either at 8-8 or 9-7.
Greenbean, what do you think about What's the record that wins the division, and could the Jets sneak into that 7th wildcard spot?
First of all, we are sneaking in. But second of all, the Bills are ahead of us in this game, man. I mean, we had that last year in McCagnon. It was literally a train wreck of a draft and a free agent period. It didn't make any sense. So the Bills were already stacking their offensive line, getting Josh Allen some receivers. So they're ahead of us. Now, the problem with them is Josh Allen's a shitbag and doesn't know how to win big games. Sorry for my French. I apologize. I'm serious.
It sounded like English to me.
Yeah, flew right out of my mouth. I'm sorry. But Josh Allen sucks, guys. And while he will have good games, I don't see him as a big clinch type, clutch type of a guy. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I don't know. I don't think so. So that's going to be their problem. I think they will win the division this year. But they're playing the same schedule that we are. So let's not forget that. They're going to have a tough time, and I think they're going to be floating around 10-6 as well. And it's going to be a fun season. I really think, again, if we protect Sam Darnold, we're going to be in this thing. But I want to take a second, if I could. There's a guy on our chat, Patrick Hoggett from Australia. Mm-hmm. He's been begging to ask a question. I've been trying to help him, but he doesn't know that Kyle Sareki is green bean. So at some point, Ryan, you can help this cat out. He's been asking for over an hour.
So let's get to his question. What's his question?
I don't know. Patrick Hoggett, where are you? Let's see.
Patrick, let's hear your question.
Yeah, he's been begging.
Yeah, we'll look for it in the chat. If you guys see it, interrupt us because we'll make sure we answer it for him. I appreciate you tuning in from Australia. That's awesome.
Yeah, right on.
He's got to watch everything from upside down. It's impressive that he's able to do that for 2 hours long.
They're like bats down there.
So I look forward to this season more than I have any other season in quite some time. I mean, I looked forward to last season prior to the injuries and the mono and everything, but I will say this looks like it will be the most competitive this conference has been in the last 20 years, or at least since Brady got knocked out with that ACL injury in 2007 or 8. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think the Jets are going to play meaningful football into November for the first time in years. Whether that translates into a wild card spot is up for debate, I think. Patrick, love you guys. Only Jets fans love. Sorry, this is Patrick's question. Would you feel more comfortable with Beachum at left tackle or Becton at... Would you feel more comfortable with Beachum at left tackle and Becton at right, or Becton at left and Fant at right? Based on what I saw last year, I'm cool with rolling with Becton as our left tackle, and I like the Fant Edoga competition at right tackle. Would I like Beachum and Becton? I guess. I don't want to spend money on Beachum right now because we got Becton, so I don't really want to see that situation happen. Matt, what do you think? Would you rather have Beachum and Becton on the right, or Becton and Fant?
Can I put Beachum on the right in this scenario?
Okay, so you're looking for Becton and Beachum, but like Beachum on the right hand side.
If Beachum's on the right hand side, Becton's on the left, I would like that. I want Becton to play on the left side. So if we're taking it like as literal as the question was, then I would take the one with Becton on the left side and Fant on the right, because I think that's fine. But I think that Beachum is better than Fant. So if I had him on the right side instead of him, then I think that's the better scenario, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. David, what do you think?
It would be kind of harder to bring Beachum back because of his questionable relationship with Adam Gase. I don't feel comfortable with putting Becton out of position, so I'm willing to take the risk with the Fant Edoga competition at the right tackle spot for maybe a year, and then you could probably maybe go find somebody else. But I'm not opposed to adding depth to the tackle position either. So you could bring in a guy who can actually compete with Becton, because Becton, in my opinion, is not gonna be considered the day one starter just yet. He's got to prove it to me in training camp. I mean, this doesn't get given to you. You have to earn your spot. So I'm okay with bringing in depth at the tackle position to compete with Becton, just so it could give Becton a little bit of a run here for his spot. But I wouldn't really put Becton out of position just to bring back a guy who has a questionable relationship with Adam Gase. I don't think I'd do it.
Green Bean, what do you think about that question? Becton on the right, Peachum on the left, or Becton on the left, Fant on the right, or some other combination?
Yeah, right. I would like I'd like to go with Fant on the right. I mean, there's something that Joe Douglas sees in this guy. He paid him $9 million a year. I think that's worth something to me. We just saw his attention to the offensive line. We saw him, completely rebuild the line, let a bunch of guys that we've been dying to let go, like Shell. They're gone, man. Compton is gone. Like these. So I trust him. And I think I saw Beachum getting trashed last year. Now, he is an average left tackle. He's better than having absolute trash out there. But, Beachum was getting pushed around quite a bit. As soon as there was a good player in front of him, he had a hard time. So I would rather go with the devil I don't know than Beachum, who I do know. So I would say, and I agree with what was said, I don't want to move Becton around. Becton's a left tackle. Let's keep him there and let him learn to dominate. But I also like your point earlier, Ryan. We got to remember that DeBrickashaw-Ferguson's first year was not all that good. It took him a minute. And we got to give Becton that same minute to come into his own. But I think he's going to be great over there, and I'd rather Becton than Fant.
NYJ Monkey, thank you for the super chat. He says, you think Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay? I'm going to go out and say he absolutely does leave Green Bay. I don't know when that's going to be, but this will be his last contract in Green Bay. Whether or not he's traded or released and signs elsewhere, I think he's going to do something similar to what Brady and Peyton Manning did. I think quarterbacks can play a long time in this league, and I think the Packers will know, hey, it's time to move on at some point. Them taking Love could be the start of that in the first round. Right now I have Rodgers' contract up. He doesn't have any guaranteed salary left after this year. So they could move on from him without too much trouble. Let me just see. Yeah, they could move on from him next year without too many problems. I think he's probably gone, I would say 2022. He'll be 39 years old. That'll be the first year he's no longer with Green Bay. Matt, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Does he leave? What's the situation with him?
Yeah, I'm pulling up the contract right now. So
he's signed through 2023 right now. That's his age 40 season.
His dead cap hit for 2021 is $31.5 million, according to Over the Cap.
Yep.
Yeah. First, I think he has a potential out after next year, and I think he could. I think he can play one more year and then take the out.
Yeah, I think 2022 is where we wind up seeing it, because next year would put him at that $31 million dead cap, because he got a $71 million signing bonus. So the last little bit of that signing bonus has to get paid out, and then you eat like $16 million or $17 million in dead cap as opposed to $31 million the year after, and then you save $22 million in cap space, because he's going to be a $40 million cap hit in 2022. David, what about you? What do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Does he get traded or play for another team? What goes on with Rodgers?
I honestly did not even think of that into consideration. I didn't even think those rumors did come out. But in regards to him getting traded, I can't exactly see that. I think it could be just smokescreen. I mean, you've had a lot of those kinds of smokescreens with a lot of quarterbacks in the past, like Brady and like Peyton. There have been some smokescreens like that with a lot of these quarterbacks getting traded to another team, whatever. So what I could see happening is I think Aaron Rodgers will probably write out his contract, and I could see him retiring as a Packer. I think he's going to want to retire as a Packer. It's hard to see him going to another team because, like Matt said, you're going to eat a big cap hit if you trade him, and then replacing that kind of production is going to be very difficult. So I think it's smokescreen. I don't think he's going to get traded.
Green Bean, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers?
Look, man, I think where there's smoke, there is fire. There is no good reason for the Green Bay Packers to trade up to grab a quarterback to make a statement. That makes no sense to me. The odd thing is that Aaron Rodgers remembers and has said numerous times how mean Big Bad Brett Favre was to him those first couple of years that he was in Green Bay. That's legend how bad their relationship was. You would think that he'd remember that and be a little bit different and welcome this kid and kind of prove that it's his team and do like a Garoppolo kind of a thing where the guy sits behind him, but he keeps his spot. But I don't see that happening. I think he's going to kick and scream like the crybaby that he is. And he's going to end up getting traded because LaFleur is already tired of his shit. And that's the way I see it. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be traded. The only problem with the trade is that he's going to kick and scream on where he wants to go because he's king baby, man. That's Aaron Rodgers. The problem there is he's good. So he's worth something. But I think that Matt LaFleur is already in a power struggle with him. And drafting Jalen Hurts or Jordan Love, like that's more than smokescreen to me.
So let's play a fun game before we move on to the next question. Where do we think Rodgers plays if it's not for Green Bay in, say, 2022?
Dallas.
He'll be. That's an interesting option because Dak is going to be franchised this year for 2020. Could they franchise him one more time, which would actually still be worth it for them over signing him long-term, I believe, just because the quarterback contracts are a little wonky. And then he goes to Dallas? That's interesting.
Well, you got to remember that what's his name is down there,
Jerry Jones.
McCarthy.
So no, he's definitely not going down there. I didn't even think of that. That was so that's interesting. All right, where do you think he's going, Matt?
Chicago.
Ooh, can't get traded there. No way. He's not getting traded. He'd have to get cut.
Why not?
That's what I mean. Yeah, because they've seen him murder them multiple times. And you got to think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be pissed, and he's going to want to go after Green Bay twice a year. And we know Mitch thinks they're going to try to get through this year, and it's probably going to be him and Foles. Foles outside of Philly isn't good either. So they're just going to be a mess for this year and next year and say, hey, we want to go short-term fix, and we're just going to bring in Aaron Rodgers for like 2 or 3 years to do it.
Well, and you know what, Matt? That's interesting because remember, Brett Favre got traded, really worked his way out of New York with the Jets just so he could play in Minnesota to do exactly that. I could see Aaron Rodgers pulling some shenanigans like that too, man. That's
now remember during that whole situation with Favre, the Jets were not allowed to trade Favre to the Vikings. The Jets would have had to surrender like 3 first-round picks or something crazy like that. That was part of the trade negotiations. So he had to play with the Jets for a year prior to getting released and then going over to the Vikings. So I think the Bears make the most sense in a vacuum. I don't see. I mean, maybe the Packers cut Rodgers in 2022 because they don't want to pay a $40 million cap hit with a rookie quarterback going into his 3rd season where you're going to have to find out. So if he's cut, yeah, I agree. He's going to he's definitely going to go to either the Bears or Detroit. I think either one of them because I think Stafford could be out soon too.
Detroit.
But I think the Bears sting more than Detroit does. Maybe he goes to Detroit because he wants to play in a dome over like playing outside in his late 30s. That's interesting. I think my initial thought off the bat was the Steelers, but I guess if you're saying he's cut, staying in the division and being in the Bears or even Detroit, I think makes a lot of sense. David, you didn't weigh in on this. Do you think he plays? Well, you think he retires Green Bay?
Yeah, I think he retires a Packer, but I could see him going to a team like the Steelers. I think Big Ben could even be on his way out in a couple of years.
Yeah, Big Ben's contract's wonky. Let me pull it up real quick because it's like it is not a good contract right now, and I think he's under contract at least for the next 2 seasons. I mean, it's longer than that, but I think they can't get out of it for the next 2 seasons. So they can get out of it after this year. So after this year, he'd save $19 million against the cap. He's due $41 million as a cap hit in 2021. So this is probably his last season in Pittsburgh, barring some type of renegotiated contract and kind of taking that cap hit down. All right, let's jump back into the questions. We'll take one more phone call before we call it a night here. I didn't even realize we got that close to 10 already.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Time just flies when I'm hanging out with all you guys and all the people in the chat. Oh man, what did TJ hide from Gangrene David? he blocked out something from you.
Call from.
Well, I guess I'll never know.
What is that?
Josh, what's up, dude? Welcome to Talking Jets.
Hey, so I just wanted to know what you think Denzel Mims will do in year one, because we see, there's some day two wide receivers that come in and have 1,000 yards year one right away, and some guys have like 300, 400 yards year one. So I want to know what you think he'll do year one, and also, do you think he could be a legitimate number one wide receiver, not like a Robbie Anderson type number one wide receiver, like a legit 1,200-yard wide receiver for Sam Darnold in the future? Thank you.
Ooh, good question. All right, so he's asking about Denzel Mims. What do we think his stats? What would a successful season for him be? What do we think he'll get for this season? And do we believe that he could be a number one wide receiver for the New York Jets, better than like what Robbie Anderson was, someone that could run like a full route tree, really be the dominant player that he is projected to be? I think he is legitimate number one wide receiver. I think he's a first-round pick in any other draft other than this year. This past year, a caller that called in earlier compared him to DK Metcalf. Just for comparison's sake, he had 100 targets with just under 60 receptions, 900 yards in 16 games. So, and he had how many touchdowns? He had 7 touchdowns. So I'm going to say that's probably about what would be the ceiling for Mims this year. I think we're probably going to see about 700 yards, 5 touchdowns year one from Mims. I also think part of it is Sam spreading the ball around a lot. Sam tends to like his tight ends. So it'll be interesting to see what Sam does with more time, with a big type of receiver like Mims. We just haven't seen him with that kind of player before. I think his ceiling for this season is 907, like 900 yards, 7 touchdowns. I think we'll probably get about 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, but I do think he is the number one wide receiver answer that we've been looking for. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit it pretty close to the nose. I think he could be a number one wide receiver for sure. Someone who you could pencil in for 1,000 and getting close to double-digit touchdowns each year. I think this year we have to reel in expectations a little bit. I don't think it's fair to expect him to put up wide receiver one numbers, meaning like 900 yards and close to 10 touchdowns. I think you're probably going to be on the low end. I'll say 6, but I think you're probably looking at, I'll go 750 and 4 or 5 touchdowns, like somewhere in that range.
David, what do you think about Mims? Where's he fall stat-wise?
Yeah, that's another thing that that's a great point about Sam Darnold that you brought up, because Mims is going to expand, I think in my opinion, Mims is going to expand Darnold's ability to spread the ball around, because one thing that Sam does do efficiently, especially with his tight end, that he's able to spread the ball around a lot. In regards to Denzel Mims himself, I think his ceiling will be 850 yards. I think he's going to be a phenomenal receiver. I definitely love his talent. I love that pick. But in regards to 1,000 in his rookie year, I think I'm not going to say that's a little unrealistic, but I don't think it's going to be guaranteed at the moment. He does have the potential to eclipse 1,000 yards, just not necessarily this year, maybe next year. This year, I think his ceiling could be 850 yards. And, of course, if the Jets are going to run pass heavy in the red zone, I could see it being maybe 7 or 8 touchdowns for Mims this year. But Sam is going to love to spread the ball around a lot to his guys, so it could be a little lower. But his max, in my opinion, I think 150 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Green Bean, what do you think of Mims' stats for this season?
Yeah, I'm looking for 500 to 700 yards. So I do agree that he will develop into our number one receiver. I think that those well-placed 500, 600, 700 yards are going to be so impactful in what we needed. I think that guys like Cager are the Antonio Gandy Golden that we, the Brian Edwards that we didn't get. I think 6'5" Cager is going to be another refreshing addition to that. I think guys like Barrios are gone, and I think that we're going to have a big 6'3" and up, just crew of men catching the ball from Sam Darnold, who's well protected. I'm psyched. Mims 700 yards, perfectly timed.
All right. I'm so glad. We had over 300 people in this stream. I think we got up to like 350 people at one point. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to doing this in the future. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit off stream, but I believe this is going to be the last Talking Jets panel for a little bit. I don't think there's going to be too much Jets news rolling in, coming from the next few weeks now that we have the draft over. But I'll put a poll up on my channel to see if you guys want to see more of this, what we're kind of looking at. Who knows? Who knows? We'll see where things go. But guys, that's going to be it for us tonight. Let me throw it around the panel. Green Bean, any last words for the people flying with us?
Yeah, man, I think it's been really awesome to watch this grow. I mean, I think our first one, we had like 110, something like that in there. And going up to, 1,400 on Friday night when I was here, and then you guys doing 1,700 over the weekend. I think it's been fantastic. If this is the last one for a while, I want to thank everybody, especially the panel, actually, because it's been really cool getting to know you guys. And then, we have regular people in the chat and stuff, and it's been really great getting to know you guys as well. And I enjoy it. And, we'll all be around, but this is really cool, and I look forward to the next time, whenever that should be.
David, any last words for the panel?
Well, I mean, first of all, I just want to thank all the three of you guys, especially you, Ryan, for getting this awesome panel together. I appreciate everything you've done for myself and all of us, especially for all these awesome Jets fans out there. I know I haven't been exactly the best to deal with, and I know I've had some questionable opinions, but I just love talking Jets, and if I have to talk Jets with anybody, I'm glad to do this with you guys. Especially with the three best Jet video makers on YouTube. It's just my absolute honor to be talking Jets with you guys. I love this panel. We'd be nothing without you guys. You guys are the absolute best, and hopefully we can get this back on track. But I was always envisioning something like this, especially to work with you guys on a weekly basis, and I'm glad I got to do it. So thank you to all three of you guys, and thank you to the chat once again. Like I said, I'm a crazy guy, but I just love talking Jets, and I love talking Jets with these guys.
Matt, any last words for the panel?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely love looking forward to this each and every week. It's an absolute blast to talk more Jets with you three. I hope we do it again real soon. I have a blast doing it. Just a quick plug, this Saturday I'm doing a rewatch, Jets Patriots 2010 playoff. So if you want to watch that game with me and relive it, come hang over there. But look forward to hopping back on here eventually.
I love it. I love it. Guys, it has been so much fun. We had a blast with you during the draft party. We had a blast with you every Tuesday for this entire 10, 12-week stretch, whatever it wound up being. It was a lot of fun. Guys, my name's Ryan. I was your pilot. This is Talking Jets, and we out of here. Take it easy, boys.